The really neat thing that's happening in the beer world right now is that the industry as a whole is completely changing. We're going from an environment where we were looking at 3,000 distributors carrying the beers of 1,000 brewers, and that has completely flip-flopped. If you look back historically, before Prohibition, there were really more like 1,600 breweries in the United States. What Prohibition did is shut it down. And then, of course, the 21st Amendment with the repeal of Prohibition is it made alcohol legal again, but it gave the power to the states to determine how they wanted to regulate the industry internally and how each state wanted to do it on their own. And after Prohibition, you have the three-tier system now. The end result is that the consumer, that unrecognized fourth tier, is winning.
So since you've taken over Red, White, and Brew for about approximately...
About a year and 2 months now.
Where do you see your biggest growth since you've been here?
Well, you know, we looked at all of the numbers, and beer has always outsold wine in SKU count. But we needed a creative way to increase the dollar amount of that SKU count. So we started really focusing on craft beers. We're only about 1,200 square feet here, so I can't carry the level of inventory that I need to carry. And also the distributors have a great relationship with the breweries, which helps us get a lot of really unique, small batch beers that we probably couldn't get if we were just a direct contact to the brewery. What customers are just on fire for right now is American craft beer. That seems to be the big growth segment for beer right now.
There has been a tremendous boom in craft beer. And I think we can trace it all back, at least to some degree, to the ability of the small brewer to get their beer to the market in a way that can compete with the big guys.
Welcome to Tchefuncte Brewing Company here in Mandeville, Louisiana. Here's the brew system that we use here at Tchefuncte. It is a 1.5 barrel system. The nice thing about the whole craft beer movement is it allows people to come in at our size and grow slowly and meet all of those accounts right off the bat.
That's a lot on the distributors themselves to go out to those areas and promote us and then get that account or that tap handle, for instance, you know, for us.
The distributor is a very important part in our business, and especially with a brewery of our size, because if we wanted to get beer to the customer, what we'd have to do is get trucks, pay for those trucks, invest in those trucks, pay for all the insurance involved with moving beer around the city, and then obviously go out and sell it and manage the keg counts at each particular account, making sure they didn't run out, making sure they had enough in stock for parties or whatever. So that would be an additional layer of work that we'd have to handle in addition to brewing beer.
From the perspective of growth and entering new markets, a lot of times you're entering a market that you have no other access to. And so it makes it hugely, your launch can be hugely more successful because the distributors in those markets already have all of the ties to the retailers established. So you create one relationship with one person that's distributing your product, and that person has numerous relationships with all of the retailers that are going to be pitching you to consumers after that.
When a brewer puts their trust in a wholesaler to deliver their beer, to represent their brand to the retailers, there's a lot of brand equity that's involved there. And of course, if you're a wholesaler and you do a lot to get a brewery from the ground up, and then they just say, oh no, I'm going to switch now, then what was the point of putting in all that brand equity? I honestly think that if that law ever went away, if there were ever carve-outs where a brewery could switch distributors at any time, it would actually be terrible for the craft beer industry. Unlike any other industry, the brewer now could not go in, and neither can a distributor, go in and pay for shelf space. In the beer world, that's illegal.
Craft beer is much more like buying wine. It's bringing in a completely different consumer that would otherwise not drink beer at all. I'm a small guy, so I mean I have one store. I don't have a national sales team. I don't have any of those things. So we rely on the distributor network to bring us these things, because there's no way I can buy a truckload of beer. I know that Champagne Beverage is going to send somebody over here to maintain the product, to make sure it's fresh. I don't even have to think about it. I can go do other things. I can go sell wine. I can go sell spirits. I just have to make sure it's in stock and ordered. You see, the thing is in what other category do you have this kind of selection? So we'll just say potato chips. You go down a potato chip aisle, there's like, you know, there may be 25, 30 different, but they're all controlled by the same companies. But in the beer world, I mean, look down this aisle. I mean, we have 890 different beers to pick from. The consumer wins in this situation because they have selection. And when you can get selection, you get what you want. You represent the brewery to me, and I represent the brewery to the customer. They don't see the tiers, they don't see the system. You know, there's nothing better than saying, look, this brewery was started by this guy in 1927, he did it out of his garage, or even 1994 or 2012, it doesn't matter. You're told the story, you tell the story to me, and I tell the story to the customer. And then that story that started a long time ago gets to the consumer, and now they're not just drinking a beer, they're drinking a story.
It's kind of interesting to look at the phenomenon that's happening now with American craft beer, and kind of taking that step back to look at, hey, America is experiencing this, whereas other countries around the world that have had centuries of beer tradition are not experiencing the kind of beer boom that America is right now. And I think you can kind of look back and realize that a lot of it is due to the fact that we have this regulatory system that came out of Prohibition that accidentally created this thriving marketplace where a small artisan craft brewer has access to the marketplace, where in other industries that access just does not exist.
What the three-tier system is designed to prevent is the vertical integration, which is having tied houses, having breweries that are able to control retail establishments, bars, grocery stores.
You're not from Baton Rouge originally, correct?
No.
I'm catching a little accent here.
You're right, you got me. I'm from Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh, yeah, of course, that makes sense. Yes, the North Louisiana accent, yeah. That's what it is.
No, I'm from London, England. I've been over here for 5 years now. I gotta be honest, I'm totally surprised. There's plenty of places where you can get a really good beer. And not one, hundreds. And that's not something I would have expected.
Is it harder over there with some of the major companies over there trying to maybe, tie themselves to different pubs and everything?
A lot of the pubs over there are saddled up to certain breweries. I mean, that's just a cold, hard fact of life. And there's very few what they call free houses. A free house is a pub that's not in line with a specific brewery. So therefore they pay a little bit more for the beers they're taking from those certain areas. And they are far more few and far between.
Just a generation ago, or maybe even a decade ago, a guy like me would have his brand and stick to it. And I think now that's almost thought of more like having your favorite band and listening to nothing but that one band.
With craft beer, it's all about the story. It is all about the passion behind each one, and it's about knowing each culture. And you are downtown Covington. I mean, it's the way things shift. Again, you look at Europe right now, and things are still, it's traditional. No one's out of the box. Their craft breweries don't exist.
I think what it is they're behind the times on us. And they are falling into what we fell into 30 years ago. Now, I'm quoting another owner from another brewery that's close to here, but the modern day beer drinker is promiscuous.
Definitely.
Me personally, I go to the store and I rarely ever buy a six-pack. I go to the store and I buy singles. I fill my basket up with singles of beer, and when I get into a beer drinking mode, I'll drink a different beer every beer because I want something different. I want a variety. And that's what this business is all about. The craft beer industry in this country is taking a hold, and people, even though it's a small percentage of the beer sales, people are wising up and they're like, well, we have options now.
I think that's exactly it. It boils down to having the freedom. You have that freedom here in the U.S. that you don't have anywhere else in the world. So you don't have that freedom to just produce whatever you want. And all of a sudden it is, you're creating, it's like cooking, it's like creating a masterpiece, it's like creating a work of art. You're putting everything and anything that you want to into it. And then when it comes out, it's your heart and soul.